Hello, and welcome to this English learning video. Today, I will help you improve your English speaking using a very simple but powerful method. It's called the shadowing technique. What is shadowing? Shadowing means listening to someone speak in English and then repeating the words right after them. Try to copy the speaker's voice, tone, speed, and feeling. You speak like their shadow. That's why it's called shadowing. This technique helps you improve your pronunciation, understand spoken English better, and become more confident. When you speak, today's story is about a young woman named Emily. She is the main character and also the narrator of the story. The title of the story is I Got Lost in the City. It's a story about courage, kindness, and learning from unexpected challenges. Let's begin the story now. And don't forget to pause the video and repeat the lines as you listen. Let's get started.
My name is Emily. I am 24 years old, and I live in a quiet village surrounded by hills and trees. Life here is peaceful, but sometimes it feels too small, too slow. I've always dreamed of working in the publishing world surrounded by books, ideas, and creativity. One morning, everything changed. I received an email from a publishing company based in the city. They liked my resume and wanted to interview me for an assistant editor position. My heart raced. I had never been to the city alone before, but this was my chance. That night, I barely slept. I packed my bag carefully, choosing a light blue dress, a white sweater, and comfortable shoes. I printed the address, charged my phone, and set my alarm for 5 a.m., my mother hugged me tightly and whispered, "Be brave, Emily." As the train moved through the countryside, I stared out the window. The green hills turned into busy roads, and tiny houses became tall buildings. Everything felt unfamiliar, yet strangely exciting. When I reached the city station, I stepped onto the platform and was immediately surrounded by noise, motion, and people. I took out the paper with the office address, Sunrise Publishing, Tower Street, Building 16. I opened my phone to check the map, but the GPS was slow, and I had no idea which way to go. I took a guess and started walking. The streets were filled with people in a rush. Cars honked, and signs flashed with colors I wasn't used to. After 20 minutes, I checked my phone again and realized I was walking in the wrong direction. I felt my chest tighten. I had only 40 minutes before my interview. I turned around and tried to find my way back, but the streets all looked the same. I stopped and asked a man in a suit, "Excuse me, do you know where Tower Street is?" He smiled politely. "Sorry, I'm new here too." I asked a woman walking her dog. She said, "Tower Street? Maybe check the subway, it might be faster." I didn't know how to use the subway. Then something lucky happened. I saw a girl about my age with headphones and a backpack. I asked her for help. She smiled and said, "I actually work near there. I can walk with you." Her name was Leah Dodd. As we walked together, I felt a bit more at ease. She talked about her cat, Oliver, and her favorite bakery in the city. We reached Tower Street, and she pointed to a tall glass building. "That's Building 16, she said. I thanked her again and again. Inside the building, I went up to the 5th floor. The receptionist greeted me warmly and asked me to wait. I looked around. Posters of books lined the walls. I felt a little more confident. The interviewer was kind. He asked about my experience, my favorite books, and why I wanted to work in publishing. I spoke clearly and from the heart. When the interview ended, he said, "We'll be in touch soon." I walked out of the building feeling proud, but just as I stepped outside, it started to rain. I had no umbrella. I ran to the nearest cafe and stood under the roof, trying to stay dry. Suddenly, I heard a voice. "Emily?" It was Leah again. She smiled. "Want to grab a coffee while we wait for the rain to stop?" We sat by the window inside the cafe. It smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. I told her how I had gotten lost and how nervous I was. She laughed. You did well. The first time is always the hardest. We talked about our dreams. She wanted to write a children's book. I wanted to help publish stories that inspired. Others dot when the rain stopped. She said, "Let me show you my favorite bookstore." We walked to a quiet street and entered a small, cozy shop filled with books and gentle music. I bought a book called The Courage to Begin. It felt like the perfect title. Later, I said goodbye to Leah and headed to the train station. I felt tired, but it was the good kind of tired. The kind that comes after doing something brave. On the train ride home, I looked out the window and thought about everything. The fear, the confusion, the kindness, the new friend, the bookstore, the rain. I realized something important. Sometimes getting lost helps you find what really matters.
Thank you for watching and listening so far. Now, I want to share another life experience from Emily, a story that will help you learn even more English while following her journey. Let's continue.
A few weeks after my job interview in the city, something amazing happened. I got the job. Yes, I became an assistant at the publishing company at first. My work was simple, replying to emails, organizing schedules, reviewing drafts. I liked it. But then one day, my manager surprised me with something unexpected. He said, "Emily, we're hosting a book launch next Friday. I'd like you to give the welcome speech." I froze. A speech? In front of people? He smiled kindly and added, "You've been doing a great job. You're ready." I nodded. I smiled. But inside, I was terrified. That night, I sat in front of a blank page for hours. What could I say? How would I stand on a stage and speak in front of a crowd? My hands were cold. My mind was full of doubt. Then I remembered something. I remembered the day I got lost in the city before my interview, how I stayed calm, how I found my way, how I did something that once scared me. If I could do that, I could do this too. So I took a deep breath and I started writing. Good. Evening, everyone. My name is Emily, and I'm honored to welcome you tonight. I practice every night in front of the mirror, alone in my room. Even in the kitchen while cooking, I recorded my voice and listened back. I adjusted my tone. I slowed my pace. I practiced smiling between lines. One evening, I read the whole speech in front of my younger sister. When I finished, she clapped and said, "Wow, you sounded like a real author." That gave me a little hope that the night of the book launch arrived. I wore a simple black dress. My hands trembled. My heart beat fast. The room was full of people, writers, editors, readers. They were all waiting. When my name was called, I walked slowly to the podium. I could feel all their eyes on me, but then I looked at the crowd, and I saw kind faces, smiling faces, people who loved books just like me. I took a breath and began, "Good evening, everyone," and something magical happened. I spoke. Clearly, I didn't rush. I felt calm, strong, and present. I even made a little joke, and people laughed. When I finished, the room filled with applause. My manager gave me a thumbs up, and one of the guest authors came to me afterward and said, "You made us feel welcome." Thank you. I was speechless. But inside, I was glowing. That night, I walked home under the city lights. The sky was clear. The stars looked brighter than ever, and I whispered to myself, "I did it." Thanks for staying with me. Since you've come this far, I want to share another personal story from my life, another experience that helped shape who I am today. It's a little different from the first two, but just as meaningful. And of course, you'll be able to shadow along with me and keep improving your English as we go. Let's continue. This is the story of the first time. I traveled alone to another country. I was 25 years old. I had never left my country before. I had never flown on a plane. I had never used a passport. But one day, I got an invitation from an organization in Spain. They were hosting a week-long writing workshop in Barcelona, and they had read a short story one published online. They said they loved it, and they wanted me to join the program as a guest writer. I couldn't believe it. Me? Going to Spain? It sounded like a dream. At first, I was excited. But then the fear came. What if I got lost? What if I couldn't understand anyone? What if something went wrong? But deep inside, I knew I had to go, even if I was scared. Even if it was hard. So I applied for a passport. I booked a flight. I packed my suitcase. And one cold morning in February, I said goodbye to my family and boarded a plane for the first time in my life. The airport was loud and busy. I held my passport tightly. I kept checking the gate number on the big screen. Everything felt strange, but somehow exciting. The flight took almost 12 hours. I couldn't sleep much. I kept looking out the window, watching the clouds, thinking about what was ahead. When I landed in Barcelona, I felt dizzy. Not from the flight, from the language. People around me spoke Spanish. Fast, loud, unfamiliar. I followed the signs to passport control, then waited in line. When it was my turn, the officer looked at me and said something in Spanish. I froze. I smiled awkwardly and handed him my documents. He nodded, stamped my passport, and waved me through. Just like that. I was in another country. Outside the airport, I found the taxi line. I showed the driver the address of the guest house where I was staying. He didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Spanish. But he smiled, took my bag, and we drove into the city. Barcelona was beautiful. Narrow streets, colorful buildings, bicycles everywhere. I watched everything through the window like I was in a movie. At the guest house, the owner greeted me with a kind smile. He didn't speak much English either, but he pointed to my room and gave me a small map. I sat on the bed, looked around the room, and suddenly felt it, alone, far from home, far from everything familiar. But I wasn't sad. I was proud. I had made it. The next morning, I walked to the university where the workshop was held. My heart beat fast. Would they like me? Would I understand the sessions? As I entered the building, a tall woman with short black hair greeted me. Emily? She asked. I smiled. Yes. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Her name was Clara. She was one of the coordinators. She handed me a name badge and showed me the schedule. Writers from all over the world had come. France, Brazil, South Korea, Egypt, Canada. We were all strangers, but we all loved stories. The first session was about writing from memory. Each of us had to share something personal, a moment that changed us. I was nervous. When it was my turn, I stood up. My voice shook, but I spoke. I told the story of getting lost in the city during my interview. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then they clapped. Clara smiled. And someone whispered, "Thank you for sharing." Over the next few days, we wrote together, ate together, laughed together. We visited parks, small cafes, and even took a walk near the sea. One night, there was an open mic event. Each of us could read something we had written during the week. I almost said no, but then I remembered how I had given a speech at the book launch back home. I had done it before. I could do it again. I stood up, walked to the microphone, and read a new piece, a letter to my younger self. I said, "It's okay to be scared. It's okay to make mistakes. But never stop showing up. Never stop trying. That's how you grow." When I finished, the room was still. Then came the claps. Warm, gentle, real. Afterward, a woman from Egypt came up to me. She said, "Your words reminded me of my own journey. Thank you." I smiled. We're not so different, are we? On my last day in Barcelona, I walked through the old streets one more time. The air was warm, The sky was pink, and the city felt like a friend. I sat at a cafe and wrote in my notebook. Not a story, just thoughts, reflections. I wrote, I came here scared, I'm leaving here strong. I came here unsure. I'm leaving here proud, and I promised myself something. I would keep traveling, keep writing, keep showing up. Even when I'm scared, that's how you grow. That's how you become yourself.
Now it's your turn to practice. Watch this video again and shadow each sentence. Copy the voice. Repeat the words. Feel the meaning. This is how you become better at English. And maybe a little stronger to thank you for staying with me through all of these stories. I'm proud of you, and I hope you're proud of yourself too. More stories are coming soon. Until then, keep practicing and keep believing in yourself.